The seal was still warm when they threw him in. A man in his 80s, lowered by rope into a pit carved beneath the palace floor, where the breath of lions hung thick in the dark. Above him, the stone ground shut, and the king who signed his death warrant couldn't sleep. But to understand why, we have to go back, not to the moment of the crime, to the moment of the prayer. Every day, 3 times a day, a man named Daniel knelt by an open window. Dawn, noon, dusk. He faced west, toward a homeland he hadn't seen in decades. The window was wide. The room was high. Anyone passing through the south wing of the palace could look up and see him. And that was the point. You might think he'd pray in secret. That's what most of us would do. Close the shutters. Whisper. Keep your head down. Survive. But Daniel chose the windows with the most foot traffic below. He knelt where guards, servants, and rival officials could all watch. Day after day, same posture, same spot, same God. This was not habit. It was a dare. And the men who hated him were watching. 3 senior officials in the Persian court had a problem. Daniel was better at his job than they were. The text says he had an excellent spirit, which is a polite way of saying the king trusted him more than everyone else combined. Darius was even thinking of placing Daniel over the entire empire. That kind of trust breeds a certain kind of enemy. Not the kind who punches you in the hall, the kind who reads every law on the books, looking for the one that can bury you. These 3 men spent months filing charges. They tried claiming Daniel stole from the treasury. Dismissed. Then they said he'd neglected his duties. Also dismissed. They couldn't find a single crack in his record. So they stopped looking for a flaw in the man and started building a flaw in the law. Here's where the story turns strange. In the Persian Empire, a king's decree was not just a suggestion. Once a royal order was pressed into wet clay and sealed with bronze and wax, it became permanent. Not hard to undo. Permanent. The king himself could not reverse it. You're a modern person. You live in a world where presidents veto bills and courts strike down rulings. You assume power means the ability to undo what you've done. In Persia, the opposite was true. Power meant your word could never be taken back, not even by you. In over a century of Persian records, not a single sealed decree was ever reversed. The 3 officials knew this, so they walked into the throne room with a proposal that sounded like flattery. For 30 days, they said, let no person pray to any god or man except the king. Anyone who breaks this rule gets thrown into the pit with the lions. A tribute to the crown. Who could say no? Darius signed. The clay cooled, the wax hardened, and the trap snapped shut. Now picture the next morning. The sun rises over the palace walls. Daniel climbs the stairs to his room. He opens the window. He kneels. He prays. The same way he prayed yesterday. The same way he prayed 6 months ago. He didn't change a thing. There is something in this moment that deserves a pause. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He didn't even shift his body to be less visible. He knelt in the same window, at the same hour, toward the same sky. He knew what the law said. He knew what the lions were. He chose to kneel anyway. What does it take to do that? Not courage in the abstract sense. The kind where your hands shake and your knees hit cold stone, and you pray louder than your fear. By noon, the 3 officials had already reported him. They stood before Darius and reminded him of his own decree. No prayer to any god or man but the king. Daniel was seen praying. The law is clear. The seal is set. Darius felt the ground crack under his feet. The text says he was deeply troubled. He spent the rest of the day looking for a loophole. He called for scribes. He searched the archives. He asked his own legal advisors if there was any clause, any way to pull back a sealed decree. There was none. The system he built to project strength had become a cage. He had the power to conquer nations, but not the power to save one old man. As the sun set, Darius gave the order. Daniel was brought to the pit. Now, you might assume this was a cage. A few iron bars, some angry cats. It wasn't. Lion pits under these palaces were carved into bedrock. Deep, narrow chambers of bare stone. They were used for spectacle. for punishment, for proving that the king's justice was final. Daniel was lowered in. The stone was rolled over the mouth of the pit, and then Darius did something that reveals the full weight of his conflict. He pressed his own seal into the stone, his seal and the seals of his officials, so no one could open the pit before morning, not even the king. Think about that. He sealed the tomb of his own friend with his own ring. Then Darius went back to his palace. He refused food. He dismissed the musicians. He lay awake in the dark, listening to nothing, while somewhere beneath the stone, a man knelt among lions. Here is the part that defies every rescue story you've ever seen. There was no blast of light, no angel with a flaming sword, no miracle that announced itself with trumpets. What happened in the pit was quiet, almost silent. The lions were there. They paced, they breathed, and then they stopped. Something in the air shifted, a stillness that had no source. Picture a lion mid-stride, muscles coiled, jaw half open, and then a pause. Not sleep, not fear, a pause. Daniel didn't move. The lions didn't move. The dust hung in the air like it had forgotten how to fall. Now, skeptics raise a fair point here. Some scholars believe this story was written long after the events it describes. They point to similar themes across ancient cultures. Egyptians had crocodile trials. Greeks had heroes who tamed beasts. The Nar surviving the monster story is one of the oldest patterns in human myth. Maybe the lion's den was never meant to be taken as strict history. Maybe it was a parable, shaped to give hope to people living under their own unjust laws. That objection matters, and it doesn't cancel the story. It just changes what you're looking at. Whether Daniel truly knelt among lions or a community of exiles told this tale to remind themselves that faith could survive empire, the question stays the same. What do you do when the law says you can't be who you are? At dawn, Darius ran. The text says he rushed to the pit. He called out, with a voice the scribes describe as chant anguished. Daniel, has your God saved you? And from beneath the stone, a voice answered, Daniel was alive, not a scratch on him. The lions lay still. The stone was rolled away. Daniel was lifted out. And then something happened that the story rarely gets credit for. Darius didn't just free Daniel. He did something far more radical. He issued new orders. Not quiet ones, official ones, sent to every province, every language group, every corner of the empire. The new orders said that Daniel's God was the living God, that his kingdom would not be destroyed, and that his power reached from beginning to end. This is where one man's refusal to close a window rewrote the rules for millions. Think about the scale. A single act of defiance in a palace window didn't just save one life. It bent the arc of an empire toward something it had never tried before. Official respect for a faith that wasn't the king's own. But here's the part the story doesn't advertise. Darius's motives were probably not pure. He was a smart ruler. He knew the Jewish exiles were loyal, skilled, and useful. Granting their God official honor wasn't just spiritual. It was good politics. It secured the loyalty of a valuable group inside his borders. Real reform and self-interest held hands in the same decree. That doesn't make the reform less real. It makes it more human. And there's a limit to this pattern. Daniel's strategy worked because he had something the king valued. His skill, his record, his decades of service. A nobody in the same pit gets eaten and forgotten. Belief alone isn't enough. It needs a foothold, a reason for the powerful to care. The story is honest about power. It just doesn't say it out loud. So you're left with a question. Not about lions, not about clay seals, about you. You live in a world where rules get locked in code, where one bad ruling can follow you through every search result, every background check, every algorithm. The system is faster now, but the logic is the same. Once the seal is set, no one can open it, not even the person who pressed it. What Daniel did wasn't magic. It was a choice. To keep the window open when every smart voice in the room said, close it. To kneel when kneeling meant the pit. To trust that the system could break before his spine did. If this story cracked something open in you, the next one goes even deeper. Subscribe. The next tale is already waiting. And somewhere beneath a palace that crumbled to dust thousands of years ago, the stone still bears the mark of two seals. One belonged to a king who couldn't sleep. The other belonged to a man who wouldn't stop praying.